Have you just come out of an exam or a job interview and think you might have failed or messed it up? Or maybe you've just received an email telling you you've been rejected. Well, if you have, don't panic, because this video is designed specifically for you. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Alex. I'm a surgeon and the founder of a few edtech companies, and on this channel, we talk about learning and human performance to help you live healthier, wealthier, happier, and more productive lives. Now, in my first year at medical school, I failed my first exam, probably because I didn't know anything about how to learn or anything to do with active recall, and it gave me a real hit to my confidence, which I then had to reflect on and improve. Well, in today's video, I'm going to break down what I learned from that process and talk through the steps that you can take, whether you think you've failed something or missed out on a job interview, or whether you have actually failed and missed out on something, and how you can deal with that both immediately and in the future to give you the best chance of doing well, whatever you're attacking. Now, I've popped up all of the chapter markers here, and if you're not subscribed, please hit subscribe now to get learning and human performance info direct to your brain every Wednesday and Sundays. So let's dive into things, starting off with what to do with the pain when you think you failed something or when you have actually messed up something. So I remember when I received an email telling me that I'd failed an exam. I actually also came out of that exam thinking that I'd failed, and I was hit with that sinking feeling in my stomach. This is part of the body's physiological response to try and keep you safe and avoid any danger. Now, in today's society, danger is often what we consider to be anything detrimental to our existence. And if you fail at something, that's why you get that sinking feeling. Now, I go into this much more in detail on one of my previous videos where I look at the science behind failing and rejection. But in summary, you just got to remember that this is a fleeting feeling and something that you shouldn't panic about. It's completely natural to get that pain when you first receive the results, and you just need to take your time and deal with it. As Lance Armstrong said, pain might last a minute, a day, a week, or a year, but eventually it will subside and something else will take its place. So whatever you're doing, even if the outcome seems like it's extremely important, it's never the end of the world, and this is just part of how your body deals with any negative result. Now, the next point is not to overanalyze what this means or take things deeply personally. I remember when I got my results and I was really worried about telling my parents or my friends that I'd failed. I felt a little bit rejected, I felt like I wasn't good enough, and it really hit a knock to my confidence. However, in the grand scheme of things, all that really happened was that I just hadn't prepared for that exam well enough. And it had nothing to do with me as a human, and much more to do with how I'd actually approached preparation for that exam. Now, it's really easy, especially when you leave an exam or a job interview, even before you know the results, to overanalyze it. And high performers have a trait that means that they will focus on the negatives over any positives, meaning that you probably think you failed when you actually haven't. This can then lead to you thinking about things, overanalyzing everything you've said, and tending towards the negative rather than the positive or anything more realistic. While it is important to reflect on things, as we'll touch on later on in this video, you don't want to be overanalyzing things to the point where it causes you stress, and there's no point because you've finished the exam or the result is certain, and there's nothing further you can do at this stage. One of the most contributory factors to you thinking that you failed and feeling really, really negative when that does happen is the fact that you're focusing on outcomes. If you're focused on the outcomes of an exam or a job interview and really putting that on a pedestal and drawing lots of self-worth and identity from it, if anything negative happens, like failing or missing out on a job, then you will take it very, very personally. And this is often out of perspective to reality. One of the best ways to get around this is to discuss things with your friends early. Tell them how you feel, explain to them that exam result or job interview result, and your friends will often have stories which are much, much worse that puts things in perspective for you. Rather than being heads down thinking about the outcome and thinking about the failure, focus more on the wider picture and how you can learn from it going forwards. Now, one of my top hacks here in the immediate aftermath of failing something is to use it to really fire yourself up in the future. Often, if I receive any negative news or anything that really gives me that sinking feeling in my stomach, I'll look down at my hands and think, hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive, it's not that serious, and then I'll use it to really fire myself up to make sure I do better next time. Now, this partly comes from putting things in perspective, and partly it's from having a growth mindset and thinking that any failure is something on your way to learning and getting better at whatever it is you're studying for or the job interview you're going for. So if I ever fail at something or receive a bad exam result or get rejected from a job interview, I'm always thinking, okay, this is an opportunity for great feedback, I'm going to learn something from it, and it's going to make me better, and it's going to drive me forwards. And that's what really kind of fires me on. Once you're out of that immediate reactivity phase from whatever the failure is, you can then start reflecting on things and really dissecting it in a much more clinical and non-emotional way. Rather than looking at yourself personally and thinking about why you might have failed something or messed up a job interview, think about your process to get there. Did you revise well enough for the exam? What approach did you take? Did you explore the interview properly? Did you understand the company? Were you actually focused and motivated on the exam or the interview? If the answer to any of these things are no, then it's likely you need to dive in and focus on these areas. For most exams and interviews, you'll also be provided with some feedback, which will give you actual data on what you need to improve upon. So for example, in an interview, if your communication skills were lacking, but everything else was good, you can really focus on those for next time to help you get better. And this brings me to my final point, which is all of these negative aspects are not the end of the world. Often things like missing out on a job interview or failing an exam happen for a reason. Maybe like me, you just didn't know how to revise or prepare well enough, and then this gives you a bit of a jolt to focus down on that, which will help you in your life going forward. If you miss out on a job you wanted, you can often reflect and think, did I really want that job? Was it the best thing for me? And often what happens is better jobs will come up, and then when you've learned from your mistakes, you're more likely to get new jobs in the future, which work out way better in the long run. In summary, none of these things mean that you're a terrible person, and you shouldn't derive any lack of confidence from the results of an exam or being rejected at a job interview. I know that from my personal aspect, failing an exam in my first year at medical school was one of the best things that happened to me, because then I dove into books like Make It Stick and really understood how to learn and be self-sufficient when learning, and that proved much more beneficial to my future career in the long run. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. We'll put up some similar videos in the end cards that focus around failure, but also on how to improve for exams and job interviews. And if you've got any thoughts or suggestions on other topics you'd like to see covered, do let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for subscribing. Do hit subscribe if you haven't already done so to get learning and human performance videos direct to your inbox on Wednesdays and Sundays. And I'll catch you again in the next video.